Listen.
Hello and welcome to Nintendo Voice Chat. I'm your host, Brian Altana. With me is Per Schneider, Zach Ryan, and Max Scoville. This is the biggest, greatest #1 Nintendo show in the world, I believe. We will call it that until it's true. Today on the show, we are talking about Wii U games being outsold on Switch. Not too surprising, but worth reporting on. Super Nintendo games potentially coming, to the Nintendo Switch, and also Virtual Console. Not a real thing yet, but you can make your own right now using money. Let's get Nintendo. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing okay.
Good. That was the fastest opening in the history of NVC.
We got to get through. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. It's in here for 2 minutes.
I was just going to ask you why you hate trees, because you printed these not double-sided, and now we've got a 5-page run of show.
Yeah, wow. This is a long show. I hope you guys like
goddamn novella here.
Exactly.
But, all right.
Exactly. Well, you good?
Yeah, I'm
all right. Let's do it. Okay, so big news so far. We're going to start off with this. Wii U games keep coming to Switch. Obviously, New Super Mario Brothers U Deluxe 2 6 Golden Coins Ultimate. Just launched last week. I'm playing it. I'm loving it. We did a 2-hour live stream this week, which was one of the funniest things I've ever done here at IGN. The game is already up 56% over the launch of the Wii U version in the UK, doing similarly in Japan. That's obviously huge news. A lot of people slept on this game the first time around. What do you guys make of this? Is this surprising in any way whatsoever?
I mean, strictly because of the install base, it doesn't surprise me at all. Like, it's such a bigger and more fanatic install base than Wii U had. There's so much confusion about the Wii versus the Wii U in those early days, especially, that it's not surprising to me that people are early adopters of these new to you titles.
Yeah, and it's also the first time, we've gotten a 2D Mario game on this platform outside of the super classic re-releases. And, I feel like whenever one of these games comes to Switch, even people who played the originals go, I gotta get it again because now I can play it on the go. And a lot of people, I didn't finish Luigi U, for example. And
no,
so
actually, nobody finished that. It's
nobody
too hard.
did.
Too difficult.
What? I finished it.
No.
I think what's surprising to me about this was that this was, believe it or not, which feels crazy in retrospect, but the definitive flagship Nintendo Wii U launch title. Nintendo Land aside, no offense, but that wasn't really pulling people in.
I like Nintendo Land.
There was stuff there to enjoy. Okay. This was the game that was basically like, this is why you need a system. And I don't really think it did a great job of selling that point. And also, that functionality has been ostensibly stripped out this time around. But Max,
it had the 5-player thing, right?
Yeah.
Like they're trying to sell you on it by saying, "Oh, look what the 5th player can do." Now you got Smash Brothers, where you just hook up a bunch more Joy-Con. You got 8-player Smash Brothers. Yeah,
true.
Max, you skipped the Wii U.
I did. I'm guilty of that.
That's okay.
One of those traitors.
I say this often, but it was you and I don't know 100 million other Nintendo.
Yeah, sure.
That system.
No, I mean I think that this is one Mario I haven't messed with really because again it was on Wii U. This is I did not have, but I think it also kind of it seemed almost like not a step backwards, but it is a 2D Mario game, and I think at a glance it doesn't. Like it's a kind of a return to form. It's familiar territory, and it doesn't do immediately anything that is kind of wow bells and whistles. Like right. Odyssey, we're like, oh, you throw your hat and turn into stuff. That's crazy. I've never seen that before. But this is like, oh, it's more Mario. It's what you know and love. And if you know and love it, then that's awesome. But for anybody who's like, okay, what's like, is this going to be a system seller?
Right.
I mean, it was, it's clearly a solid game, and people are, people love it. Like you frequently like champion this. You're playing through it right now.
I'm playing through it right now. Yeah, I'm actually really enjoying it. It's like one of those games that I feel like I can go back to a lot. And I think like the main hook of this is that it's multiplayer, right? It's a multiplayer Mario game, and it's not as pretty as some of the other ones, but you're totally right, Max, in that this does not have a definitive gimmick to it. Like even the 3DS version was just like, there's coins.
Yeah.
There's millions of coins. And the first time we saw this game on Wii, the context was that this is the first time you can play 4-player local co-op multiplayer Mario.
Exactly.
But for the Wii U version now on Switch, there really isn't anything new, but I think that's okay because it just works.
Ultimately, like the secret to New Super Mario Brothers, that franchise success is that it's just brilliant level design and super tight gameplay mechanics. And so, like, yeah, it is an odd choice as a launch title for it was an odd choice for the launch title for the Wii U because it is just not necessarily more of the same, but or it is more of the same, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. I guess is
Exactly.
what I'm trying to say.
Well, I think the fact that it's multiplayer, it makes perfect sense on Switch because it is, you take your Switch to a party.
Yeah.
And the fact that having two Joy-Cons, they're effectively 2 for 1.
Yeah.
Like you automatically have a second controller.
And it doesn't feel bad to play on the.
Here you go, Karen.
Either.
Yeah.
I got significant time on a stream yesterday, and me and Tom Marks and Brendan Graber, IGN employees here, tweeted out some clips from that stream, and they're just ridiculously funny. So go check those out. But also, that was my first time playing 4-player local co-op in this game, and it really is a bummer that the 4th player is forced into playing as either Toadette, who is easy, or Nabbit, who is easiest or very easy. And Nabbit in that game effectively can steal every power up and not use them, just inhale them. So you have this like troll with you the whole time who's just taking everything and leaving nothing for yourself.
Was it Brendan?
It was Tom, actually.
Oh, okay.
But we got a question from Pat Gallagher from the Nintendo Voice Chat Facebook group, which you should join. He says, do you think that the new Super Mario Bros. Deluxe release suggests Nintendo is done with the new line, or that this is beginning of another wave? The new line we've seen effectively the Wii version, the Wii U version, the 3DS version, the DS version, the Switch port of the Wii U version, and also the same art style being used for the iOS version.
Yeah, I was going to say, I also consider Super Mario Run part of that universe.
So they really milked it. Plus, we saw that art style as an option in Mario Maker. So it's out there. There's a lot of it. New means nothing anymore. Do you think they're done with it now?
I think it's done.
Okay.
I think it's done because, I mean, first of all, new has lost its meaning in this franchise, right? We've heard it so many times. It's no longer a differentiating factor for a mom going into a GameStop and saying, give me the new Super Mario Brothers, because they'll be like, which one of these 5, right?
Yep.
No, I think they've, Nintendo's experimented with art styles with Yoshi and Kirby so much, I think they're going to apply it to Mario. And we've seen Paper Mario before. I think the next 2D Mario game is going to look very different visually.
Yeah.
I'm into that.
What are you thinking? Hyper realistic?
Yeah.
Yeah, super realistic, like Zitty.
Just Brian with a
Plumber.
mustache.
I'm okay with that.
With no, I think they'll do that kind of arts and crafts approach. Maybe they'll do a more elaborate Paper Mario style looking game, but a platformer.
Sure.
They've tried it.
It's weird because halfway through New Super Mario Bros. Deluxe, there's a level that's based on Van Gogh paintings.
Yeah, it's Starry Night.
I would love
It's like
that.
the best level in the game.
It's
too.
so cool. It's just tucked in there, and it's actually like a really clever level too. And then they just didn't really revisit that.
Yeah, I brought this up before. I wish they had. That was almost Looney Tunes like, right?
Yeah.
I wish they had like taken all the great painters and just done a level for each, like a Picasso, a Seurat, or whatever.
I would love to see a Super
so
Mario
cool.
like Picasso level that's just like all weird
Right?
blobs and eyeballs all over the place and stuff. Like it'd be great.
Mario going through some Goya paintings.
Yeah. Oh no.
Yeah, into horror.
Sorry, you're dead.
In other news, Smash Ultimate has already outsold Smash 3DS in Japan. In comparative windows, Smash Ultimate is at 2.6 million in 5 weeks. Smash 3DS is at 2.5 since 2014 in Japan. That's just Japan, and this is just physical. Same thing on the reporting on the new Super Mario Bros. One. Obviously, digital sales are a huge thing on Switch, and those aren't being reported in sort of unison with these things. But hey, an IGN quote. Smash Wii U sold about half of that total, which is about 1.2 million total in Japan. And Smash Brothers Ultimate is now the best-selling Smash ever in Japan. But Brawl is the best-selling Smash Brothers game at 13 million, with Smash 3DS at 9 million globally, and Melee behind it at 7.5. So, obviously, big shoes to fill and a long way to go, but I think it's possible. How do you guys feel about that?
Good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Do you think this will become the best-selling Smash Brothers game of all time?
I think eventually, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That would be huge numbers. It's weird because Melee is the one you hear about the most, and it's not the best-selling one.
Yeah, and now you have a year of content drops coming up, right?
Yeah.
So they'll keep on promoting it. People keep on telling their friends, "Ooh, there's a new character." It gets people to play again, which means there'll be a vibrant online community. It's very different from the past. I feel like that's. It certainly bodes well for this game, and look no further than Splatoon, certainly in Japan, to see what that kind of support does for games, or Fortnite.
It also it snowballs, because there's this social aspect to Smash where you go to a party, and if you've been living under a rock and people are playing this game and you're like, what's this? And they keep adding more characters. Like it's this behemoth at this point where if you have even the most like casual passing interest in games, there's probably something in there that appeals to you.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I mean, the Switch is perfectly suited for it because it's a portable social system. So yeah, I think that this is absolutely going to be best selling.
It's also like I don't know if this is thanks in part to marketing or just the idea that Smash is in sort of a legacy franchise at this point, but it's part of the public lexicon of gaming now, right? Like even when I went home at Christmas, my dad was like, playing that new Smash Brothers. Like he doesn't know anything about video games. But he was like,
Smash,
he was like, you playing that Smash game? And I was like, yeah, dude, I'm playing it a lot.
I was actually just thinking about this in that games are
about my dad.
I was thinking about your dad, having a good weekend to myself. But I think that we're gonna hear like more gaming terminology used as like a commonplace thing. Like I think in our lifetimes we're probably gonna hear. I don't know about a president, but a politician refer to like a blue shell.
President video game.
Yeah, president video. But no, like, I mean, we talk about like, like a blue shell and like everyone, I mean, we're obviously work at IGN, so it's maybe not your normal household.
Sure.
But, like, it's a thing that's pretty commonplace in conversation.
Yeah,
and
totally.
like, everyone knows Mario. Like he's sort of like a Mickey Mouse at this point.
Yeah.
And it's going to be weird when there's like, I don't know, like a real grown up being like, oh yeah.
I mean, it's probably the only context when we want to hear about our dads talking about trying to smash. So
Yeah.
there it is. Let's see.
right,
So
that's it.
I think my question to you guys is: are you still playing it? And if you are, what's keeping you from coming back? Because it's been about 5-6 weeks since the game's been out. Obviously made a huge impact. I still hear it in the corners of the IGN office, which means people are still doing sort of pickup games here and there. I personally, I'm coming back for Spirit Mode every now and then and grabbing some of the sort of timed exclusive ones or the ones that bump up a little more often. They did ones based on like classic NES games recently, and they had the old school like Legend of Zelda concept art, and I'm like, I need that. I went in between 2 p.m. and 2 a.m. or whatever the weird times were to get it, and I got it. So that's what's keeping me there. But what about you guys? Are you still playing it?
I haven't touched single player in a while. I've gone back to some other single player games I'm playing, but every time, my kids are older now; they're in their teens, so they've got friends over, and they ask to
They're settling
they
in
ask
Smash.
to beat me up.
Yeah.
A lot of times. So that's how I always get sucked in because there are people in the house who want to play.
That's awesome.
You and I were talking about this a little earlier this week, how each of us, I feel like on this panel, have been playing Smash in a very different way. Like I've barely spent any time in World of Light. Like I've played the first maybe couple hours, but it didn't really interest me as much as the classic modes.
You are
unlocking the
1%
characters.
finished with it.
Yeah, exactly. Unlocking the characters. But the thing that keeps me coming back is the online.
Yeah.
I keep playing online, and it's really nice because like I'm not very good at the game, but I have a lot of fun playing it, and it does a really great job of, because of the I think the Smash points or whatever they're called, I forget, your global Smash power, right? Your GSP. It matches you against players that are within your same level. So just kind of watching that ebb and flow depending on how I've been playing has been really cool, and it keeps me coming back, and it gives me an excuse to like. Whereas a game like I know you're gonna give it to me, but a game like Destiny where you take a break and then when you come back everybody's outclassed you, outleveled you, and it's not fun to play anymore. Smash is
I'm not gonna give it to you.
Smash is really easy to come back to because it's pitting you against players of the same skill set.
The key difference is you never feel like you're good at Smash.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. But
Yes.
I've always been an equal amount of bad, and I'm playing with other bad players. I just imagine they're just like tiny children on the other end. They're just like learning to play for the first time.
I know that a lot of Max. Are you still playing it?
Yeah, I'm dabbling. I've
and
got some very long airplane flights coming up, so I'll be definitely unlocking some characters. I love how everyone plays it differently.
Yeah.
I think that, so like full disclosure, this is my baby's first Smash. This is the first Smash game I've jumped on, and I've always played it at parties not knowing how to play, which isn't fun, and it's not a good way to learn. And there's been no sort of like there's no like encouragement to like grab a copy, but this one, like everyone around me I knew was going to be playing it, so I jumped on it, and I love it, and it's been really fun to just. I feel like I have like stupid parties at my house, and it usually devolves into Smash or Jackbox Party Pack or something.
Yeah.
And I feel like I owe it to my party guests to unlock that full roster. So that's been my mission. And I'm never going to collect the entire Spirit board, but I do like the adventure mode a lot. And it's, I don't know, like.
Just rent some kids, man. Give them the Switch and make them unlock it all.
That's a
for
good
you.
way to wind up on a list.
Go to rent a kid.
One more quick thing for news, and we'll get to some of the bigger topics. But 3 more 3DS Select games, or the Nintendo Selects lines, have dropped to $19.99. These are fantastic video games. They are Super Mario Maker, The Legend of Zelda, Majora's Mask, and Star Fox 3D. These are all on 3DS, so if you're still rocking that system, and for some inexplicable reason you have not played these very classic games, and yeah, I think I can call Mario Maker a classic, even though it's only a few years old. Go get them now. Is there anything else left to say about these 3 games? I mean, these are...
No, I'm curious to see if we'll ever see Mario Maker on the Switch. It feels like they built a platform and then just kind of walked away from it when they ran into a little bit of trouble with surfacing the right levels for the right players.
Yeah.
Hopefully they'll try again.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting to put together sort of a feature here at IGN of like what does get lost in translation from bringing games over from Wii U to Switch into other platforms, because we just got New Super Mario Brothers, which lost the touchscreen stuff. Captain Toad lost its dual screen functionality, and the controls kind of took a hit for it. Yeah, exactly. But this is a game built around touchscreen controls, and so on Wii U and on 3DS it makes perfect sense. And for $20, it's an absolute steal. But I'd really love to see that on Switch. I just don't know how it would work. I mean,
well, like
it's like waggling at the screen, right? Yeah, I guess with your finger, they could ship it with a style.
What if we got a?
You can use anything.
Like, what if that solution to dumping Wii U and DS games on Switch is a peripheral that plugs in the bottom that's just a stylus?
Oh man!
Like Nintendo has made weirder hardware.
Yes,
definitely.
Nintendo made a what we called a boat for the Nintendo 3DS that you connected to, that added a second analog stick that would allow you to play Resident Evil, Mercenaries, the Metal Gear Solid 3, and like maybe Monster Hunter, like 2 other games.
I forgot about the barge.
A lot of people do, as they should. One of the big stories this week is Nintendo Switch Online just got a few new NES games. That's great and all. They've been trickling those out. But more importantly, this is really, really cool. Somebody actually dug through the source code.
Somebody always digs through
the online strings. Twitter user Cappuccino Heck, that's spelled with a K like Mortal Kombat, has discovered a list of SNES games and some code in NES Online strings that reveals many titles that may be arriving on the Nintendo Switch at some point in the future. Now, this text was not there at the launch of the app, but in a recent update, it appeared. He also found a Super Nintendo emulator. I'm going to run through some of the games real quick. Super Mario Kart, Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past, Yoshi's Island, Stunt Race FX, which apparently has never been released in any format. It's it's a Super FX game. Kirby's Dream Course, Star Fox 3, Contra 3, Ghouls and Ghosts, F-Zero, Mario World, Metroid, everything. All the big ones.
You're skipping all my favorites.
Every great Super Nintendo game is on this list. Like, there's nothing that's missing here.
Yeah, including some Japan-only titles.
Yeah, Legend of the Mystical Ninja.
Well, Puppet and Twinbee came out in Europe, but has never been released in the US.
Yeah, as well as Star Fox 2, which was unreleased and unfinished, and then finished again for the Super Nintendo.
For the SNES Classic,
So we're taking a look now at the trailer for the SNES Classic, which is obviously one of the easier ways to play all of these games. At least it was recently when this thing was still being sold. What do you guys think about this?
Well, I want it. I mean, we talked about how the virtual console is gone, but it's not really gone, right?
Yeah.
We now have a subscription plan, which is something that we wanted in the past, and we talked about, where you get new games unlocked every month. It just so happens that the NES games, which which some of us have bought 19 times at least,
Right. Yeah.
and my favorite console of all time is the Super NES, and I played the Super Famicom version. And just looking at this list, like, you skipped over some other stuff like Demon's Crest. We haven't heard, like, it's a great Capcom game, or another great one, Breath of Fire 2.
Breath of Fire 2.
Like,
it's one of my favorite RPGs.
Anything about these franchises in so long, and just going back and playing these.
Or Super Mario All-Stars, which is
like
a really great collection of the original 3 Mario games for the NES, remade with 16-bit graphics. I think what's interesting about this is Reggie has said on record before that basically the Nintendo Online apparatus is effectively there to replace the virtual console nomenclature, right? But I don't know what that means for people who are currently paying for the subscription service. Right now, it's a couple bucks a month or $20 a year. And if you're playing Smash or you've listened to the show, obviously the online portion of that, in terms of matchmaking and voice chat, leaves a lot to be desired. And I think their make good to that is effectively you get a bunch of NES games every month. They've trickled out 2. This month we got Zelda 2 and what was the other one?
We got Master Blaster.
Yes. And in Japan, there was 3. But at this rate, it will take the rest of our lives to get all these games. Super Nintendo would be a really nice make good. However, there's really nothing stopping them from adding a sort of price subscription tier to this business model and saying, hey, instead of $20 a year, it's $25 and you get Super Nintendo. Oh, you want N64? It's $30. GameCube? $40. Like, how much can they push this? And do you think they will?
They can push it right up to about, $50, which is what the PS4 costs.
Yeah.
But
right?
But the difference to like a subscription service on the Xbox or the PlayStation is that new games are being released all the time, and they're going to run out of games with a tier like that, you know?
Right.
Because there's certain games that will be ineligible for re-release, like you're not going to get a Star Wars game again, or you're not going to get a Madden game again because of all the licensing rights. And so there's a finite
they put out
library
the
of
Super
NES.
Star Wars collection on PlayStation in 2016.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I wouldn't take those completely off the table. I know you're speaking specifically,
Yeah.
but yeah.
But I feel like to me it's more likely that they will start mixing in a Super NES game.
Yeah, I think that like to me this doesn't scream like they're just gonna drop all of these. Like here's the Super NES collection on Nintendo Switch. It's more so along the lines of like, and now we've added Super Nintendo into the mix, so you might get Kirby for NES and then also Kirby for Super Nintendo. You know, like a theme
I'd be all
month,
about
like,
that.
Yeah, I think that could be kind of cool.
What if this is just a bundle, like a collection? You're gonna buy them all.
Why would they do that?
Yeah, it feels
because
weird.
they already have this SNES Classic that has the majority of these games on it, and like they would sell these digitally for what? $60, and that's a loss compared to what they're selling the NES Classic for. So it doesn't make sense to me that they would put these all out in one lump sum. That's why I was saying it seems like they would mix and match.
I think they're sort of for different audiences. Like the NES Classic is a sort of set-top box that I think is for casual retro people who have fond memories of those systems, and like people like us who buy everything Nintendo. But the Switch is a different beast, right? You can bring it anywhere, and you can play multiplayer on the fly, and it connects to your TV. It does a lot of great stuff. But I think what makes this so different than sort of PlayStation and Xbox is that those have, by all accounts, pretty robust and fully functioning online systems. And by tethering the virtual console to their online, it's always been this weird piggyback system where instead of just being able to buy retro games or play retro games, it's like, hey, you pay to play Smash Brothers online, and your bonus is you get Mighty Bomb Jack. You know, like weird things like that. And so I think like ultimately from the business side, they're leaving a lot of money on the table by not just letting people buy these individually piecemeal. But the way it's set up right now is you have an NES app. And so for them to launch Super Nintendo games, would it be a separate app? Would they retool the one they have right now? And
Maybe they just turn that into like the Classics app or something, and it's all a launcher for any.
I would love that. And so you'd go in there and be like a photo of each console, and you click on it.
That would be really nice.
Yeah.
I mean, the nice thing about subscription services for companies is that it's, I'll pay you for your hamburger on Tuesday, basically, right? You're paying up front for a service, and the company knows exactly, how many paying customers they have, how much money they can count on, and then they know the lifetime value of every customer. They can tell by your playing behavior whether you're going to be in next year.
Right.
And so it is a little bit more secure than taking a bet that you'll be motivated to sign on again in a year to download another Super NES game. So companies love subscription services. But I also think, remember, we've got the NES games now. Maybe we'll get to Super NES. Maybe we'll get to N64 eventually. Game streaming is coming. It's already out in Japan. Bandwidth speeds are getting faster. We talked about it last time and freaked out a bunch of Nintendo fans. It's inevitable that consoles will be replaced by machines that connect to the internet in a fast way and stream games remotely. And maybe this is, maybe that's the continuation and the future of Nintendo Online. Hopefully they'll spend a couple of bucks on making voice chat and all that better.
Yeah, I just feel like it'd be weird if they're like, oh, it's Nintendo Online is more money now, but for people who don't mess with these retro games, their service costs go up, but the value of the service doesn't necessarily go up.
Yeah, and
I mean,
go ahead.
we're
Max.
already seeing it as like a tiered subscription service.
Yeah.
In fact, there's the family mode, which seems almost kind of odd alongside, Xbox Gold and PlayStation Plus. And but I mean, seeing
I love family mode. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, it's super smart. But I mean,
all the money you get to save and spend on Joy-Cons and stuff.
I pay for 4 Xbox accounts at home.
Really?
I'm paying for 1 family Switch account.
All right.
yeah, it's all a write-off though, because
It's not a write-off. It's personal. My kids don't work for us.
they should though. You should. Put
They
them-
could.
That's right. Okay,
Send
my
them over to
kids do.
Max's to unlock Riddler.
IRS,
There we go,
I know you're closed forever, probably.
the
but
Schneider Summer Intern Program.
No, like I was going to say, this reminds me a little bit if they do decide to kind of like have this tiered release and SNES games cost more than NES ones. It reminds me of when people were getting virtual console games and it was like, you get it if you already owned it, you get it for a discounted rate. Was that the jump from Wii to Wii U, or was that, what am I thinking of?
That was the
Brian-
jump.
Brian
from
knows
Wii,
all about
that was
yeah.
from Wii to
Jump
Wii
from
U.
Wii to Wii U. It cost $1 to unlock the ability to effectively re-download them, play them launchable through the Wii U menu, and not by kicking into Wii mode on your Wii U, where they'd be downloadable and playable for free. Yeah.
It was very clear.
Yeah.
It's weird that I know that. I don't know why I know that.
Also, hear all your Rock Band songs again if you just pay me.
Oof,
yeah. God, that was so weird. I hadn't thought about that.
I would like to sort of optimistically think that Nintendo is sort of looking at not just what other game platforms are doing, but what sort of media in the future is doing. And
right.
the idea that, like, I know that they're hesitant to sort of devalue their games, and that's why we don't see a Mario port on iOS for 99 cents, because they're like that cheapens the experience.
Yeah.
Like have some legacy content, but at the same time, like it would be kind of cool if they were like, hey, every month you get. There's three new Nintendo games and maybe a new SNES game, and maybe they pull some from the library and swap stuff out, kind of like Netflix does.
Yep.
But it's exciting. I definitely have many more fond memories of SNES games than I do for original NES.
Yeah.
And I would 100% replay Link to the Past.
Yes.
Like, that's
all of these games on this list are great.
yeah.
Yeah.
And who's to say they don't scale all the way back and offer further tiered online services, in that it's like, okay, if you want to play Smash Online competitively, it's $20 a year.
Yeah.
But if you're interested in this Classics collection, then it's $30 a year. And if you're interested in, competitive and Classics and like bonus demos or whatever, then it's $35. Like people, Nintendo fans especially, will pay that extra 10, 15, whatever dollars to get that exclusive content. So
And
I agree.
I mean, obviously, Netflix just raised their rates by $2 or $1 depending on what you have. On the other platforms, we've seen Xbox giving you the basic Xbox Live service, but then also the Game Pass service on top of that. PlayStation has PlayStation Plus, but also PlayStation Now, and I have no doubts that as the install base grows with the Switch, we'll get another tier, we'll get another service. We'll see what that is, though.
Yeah, it's interesting to me because I think that, like, I could complain about the money going up, but ultimately I would have bought most of the games on the NES Online app for $5 a pop, and I would have easily surpassed $20.
Yeah.
But the thing about that is that those purchases hypothetically would have carried over to the next systems.
Right.
And right now they're just sort of like lending me stuff that can vanish at any moment. So we actually don't know. This was at the beginning of this year we found out for the first time what their rollout was for January. We don't know what's coming in February or
you're
March.
sort of in a precarious situation. Whoa.
A ghost.
You're in a precarious situation either way, right? Because if Nintendo decides that they don't want you to play the Adventure of Link anymore, and you're halfway through that game, they might take it off the online service.
Right.
And it's gone forever.
Yeah.
But also, like, I was talking to my roommate about it this weekend, and he was telling me that he bought a bunch of stuff on the Wii that his Wii bricked, and now that's just gone forever. Like all those games that he purchased are just locked in that system, and he can never play them again.
Yeah.
It's an unfortunate situation either way.
Yeah, it sucks.
Yeah.
We have that. I think we had an IGN Wii that got bricked, or we trashed it, and so we lost all the digital stuff. It was like our primary one. Yep.
Yeah, you just. I think with stuff like that, I just remind myself, like, you paid for the experience and you enjoyed it, and you have no ownership anymore in the digital future. And it's sad, but you had fun playing Mario. Quick PSA: the Nintendo Wii Shop is closing for good at the end of the month, and so if you don't plan on bricking your system, now's your chance to get your last purchases in. There's a bunch of stuff on there that you can't really play anywhere else. So go throw it money. And then
Are they doing like a going out of business sale or anything?
I think so. Yeah, they're gonna put balloons up. It's like gonna be like a Circuit City where you go in there. There's just racks with like clearances.
Oh God, it's a fire
sale. They actually won't. I don't think they'll have any clearance of any kind because it's all digital. They're not like everything's got to go. It's taking up all this space.
Were you guys here when Sega was closing out all the Dreamcast stock?
No.
No.
Sega reps actually came by with a price list, and they're like, all right, so we got the fishing controller, it's just $2.99 if you want it right now, and bass fishing is $5.
That's so sad. That really
they
breaks my heart.
literally went like door to door selling all their inventory.
It's related, but not to this show. Dreamcasts are on their way back up in price now.
Really?
Oh,
Yeah. For a long time, they were dirt cheap, but now
Yeah.
they're starting to climb back up as older systems die off and they become a little more scarce. So.
Oh my God.
I bought a Dreamcast in 2002 for $30 from a Game Crazy. So
There was a friend of ours got
God.
a Dreamcast boxed brand new for something stupidly cheap because somebody found a shipment of them in some warehouse and put them on eBay.
I bet you that kind of story happens all the time.
Yeah.
See, I wanted at one point Virtual Boys were so cheap, and like an idiot, I didn't buy one.
That's when I bought mine.
And so now I want a Virtual Boy just for sometimes I feel like I need to have a headache, and you can't like they're so expensive. They're really pricey now, and the games are harder to find. Always, whenever something hits rock bottom, just buy it, like store it somewhere.
Friend of the show, Jeremy Parrish, who co-created the Flip Grip, which we talked about on the show before, is working on this thing called Virtual Boy Works, which is effectively this encyclopedic tome of all things Virtual Boy, which luckily for him is like 26 games, encompasses that entire library. And he tweeted out recently about how that system probably would have been successful had it just been a traditional handheld with a monochromatic screen that played a bunch of really good games. Because there's a bunch of great, the Wario game on there is great, Mario Tennis is great.
Never played any of them.
Yeah,
I played for like a couple of minutes,
Bowling.
went, whoa.
I mean, Teleroboxer is basically like futuristic Punch Out.
Yeah.
Where you
And
fight
then
a cat at the end.
Red Alarm is effectively like an awesome Star Fox spinoff. Like, yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff there, but
All right.
it's
Some
gone.
of those games are mega rare too.
Yes, they
Oh,
are.
I'll
Like
keep
Waterworld.
I'll keep looking at garage sales then.
Yeah, keep
Some
looking.
grandma's gonna
Don't
find
you
one.
have a Virtual Boy in the
I don't.
console display?
That's not mine.
Take it home.
Oh.
Go
not gonna
blind.
steal
Yeah, I'm
somebody
sure. I'm
else's
sure you.
Virtual
I'm
Boy?
sure you couldn't take that out of there.
Yeah,
of
you're
all
Per
people.
Schneider.
Yeah.
You invented this place.
You do whatever the hell you want.
that was my Virtual Boy. Quiet kid.
Speaking of Virtual Console, if you have a Nintendo Switch and you want to play retro games and there isn't a Virtual Console, which there isn't, we put together a list of some of the best sort of retro collections on the system right now. There's actually a lot. Stopping to look back at them, I'm pretty surprised that the system that's just under 2 years old has a decent amount of retro collections. So using this list, you can actually put together effectively your own Virtual Console. So let's take a look.
For a price.
For a price. So let's go through it. Sega Genesis Classics just launched on Switch about a month ago. It's $30. It's got 50 games like Sonic 2, Alex Kidd, Columns, and Shinobi 3. It's really cool. I'm not crazy about the way you sort of kick into these ROMs. It's a fake living room with a shelf, and you have to pick games from it, and it just looks...
It's not pretty.
Yeah, it looks like something Midway would have done. Like, it's very hokey. That said...
it.
Yeah,
I think it's great.
I figured you would.
I am an idiot.
But this is a really cool way to play a bunch of these games. The emulation's really good, and save states are super easy to pop into. And I think it just looks great on Switch in handheld mode.
I feel like $30 for Gunstar Heroes in Columns is already worth it.
Yeah. And so note on that, it's got Sonic 1 and Sonic 2, but not Sonic and Knuckles because of some weird licensing rights with the Michael Jackson Foundation.
Oh, yeah, and you have to plug two switches into each other
like,
to make the
exactly.
power.
It's very expensive.
There's actually, they're selling Joy-Cons that it's Sonic 2 and Sonic and Knuckles, and you plug them in.
That's weird. I never heard about the licensing thing. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's really bizarre, and it keeps that game from being ported in perpetuity pretty much
Replace
anywhere.
that stuff.
I've had my eye on this for a while. Every few years, I like to spend money to remind myself that Altered Beast is not great.
It's not good.
I'm
Thank
not
you.
a fan.
I like
you.
that it talks, though. I think that's a good...
Yeah, I think that's the shining moment of that game is when it says, and then it's just terrible after that. So that's Sega Genesis Classics.
But
You go check that out.
I mean, $30 for 50 games, that's pretty damn good.
Yeah.
Fantasy Star on there?
I believe it is, yeah. And I will say
Pay
that
$40 for Fantasy Star.
that game's-
$30.
that collection is sort of lacking in the sort of celebrational side of things. It doesn't really have a ton of like deep history or scans or anything like that.
Well,
namely because Frank Cifaldi didn't work on it.
I was gonna say it's not on your list here, but the Disney Afternoon collection is probably to me the foremost example of like how to do a collection right because of the concept art, because of all the extra bonuses they threw in there.
It's
Like
actually
Mega Man.
not on my list because it's not on Switch yet.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
You're right. Legacy collection is a good analogy.
Yep.
Funny you'd mention that. We should come back to it later.
Yeah, when we pick our own retro collection.
When we read the run of show before we record
See it here.
Coming up next, the SNK 40th Anniversary Collection. It's $39.99. It had 12 games at launch a month ago, and then randomly they added 12 more for
Whoa.
free like 2 weeks ago. So that's really cool.
rules.
This has games like Akari Warriors, Alpha Mission, and Crystalis, however you say that. Frank Cifaldi did work on this, and so the sort of back-end packaging and sort of celebrational side of it is awesome. There are scans, there's manuals, there's you can play it in Tate mode.
Look at those bros.
Yeah. I will say that I'm not crazy about a lot of these games, and I actually don't really have a ton of nostalgia for the entire concept of SNK as a brand or a company. But the fact that these are all packaged under one roof is really cool, I think, for history's sake. And the emulation's great. Playing them is like, it's a mixed bag, but I think that the way they're presented is really cool. So check that out. Like I said, 24 games are in there now. It's $40, so it's a little more money, but it's got a lot of really great bells and whistles that I really appreciate.
It just looks like a bunch of games that I would be bad at and not
Yeah.
have fun playing.
Yeah, I will say that they added a rewind function, and so playing a bunch of these games, there's a lot of quality of life stuff here that makes it so that like even if you suck at it, which I do as well, you don't feel so bad about it. So
Yeah.
also,
right.
Crystallis or Chrysalis, really weird game. It's like this bizarre fever dream remix of Zelda. Next, the Atari Flashbacks Classics that just launched, $39.99, 150 games.
Asterisk.
That's
No
Asteroids.
asterisk. No asterisk because they're right about under 100 games.
Yeah.
Because they're duplicates, so you sometimes get a 2600 version of an arcade game, and so they're different versions of the same game. And when you play the arcade version, you can't really play the 2600 version afterwards anymore. I spent some time on this. I grew up with the Atari VCS, so I have fond memories of a lot of the games, even though they were jankier ports of the arcade games. But this does have some of the better Atari games in it, like Asteroids and Centipede in their arcade form. But we talked a little bit about this. It doesn't have kind of like the games that the machines and that Atari was famous for back in the days,
right?
Because they were under Namco licenses, right? Like you're not going to get a Pac-Man, or you're not going to get the crappy Donkey Kong Atari VCS version. You're only getting the core Atari titles.
Yeah, like most sort of retro collections or remakes or anything like that, a lot of this kind of stuff is tied up in weird lawsuits and rights. And
so I would say, the games I was so excited about back then were, Empire Strikes Back. Like, everybody knows the AT-AT. That's like one of the AT-AT attack, the Hoth level was one of the Hoth game was one of the most iconic moments, I think, in early gaming. Gaming, like, this looks like the real movie, right? You fight the little donkeys. No. And Return of the Jedi was cool, but at least we get stuff like Yar's Revenge, and you can replay those.
Yeah, there's stuff like Asteroids and Centipede. Crystal Castles is awesome. I really love that game.
So good.
And it does a cool thing in this game where effectively the menu screen looks like you're looking down on like a dresser drawer full of carts.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's got all the labels on top and everything, which some of them have really cool art, and some of them just say like tennis. But that's the Atari for you. Again, that was like before my time. But I respect it, and it's a part of history, and it's really cool that it's on Switch.
I want them to do the Atari home computers that came later. Actually had really good conversions of arcade games on it. That's I played a ton of Dig Dug and Donkey Kong and Summer Games, all these games on the home computer. So maybe we'll get a second take on those.
Next, the Arcade Archives and Neo Geo Arcade Archive series. If you remember getting a Switch at launch and jumping on the store and being like, "What's available?" and there were like 8 games, and 6 of them were Arcade Archives.
Yeah.
These guys have been just prominently pumping out ports of classic arcade games like Metal Slug, Metal Slug 2, Metal Slug 3, every King of Fighters game ever made, just tons of games. And recently, I think what's really cool is that they started doing a bunch of first-party Nintendo stuff, like the Donkey Kong arcade port, Donkey Kong Jr. just launched. There's the Punch-Out arcade, which to my knowledge has never been playable on a Nintendo console before. That was a sort of vertical dual screen game. These are $7.99 each. You don't get a collection of them, but you can sort of piecemeal pick out the ones you want. And there's lists out there of like the best ones. But right off the top of my head, I would say like Donkey Kong, Punch-Out, the Metal Slug games are really great.
Yeah, look how pretty they still look. Obviously,
they look great.
you get arcade authentic slowdown on all of these, and the Metal Slug games always bit off more than they could chew. There's just way too much going on
They're
screen.
having so much fun.
They
Just look
really
at it.
are.
I love those games.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, these are great co-op games. I think that it's sort of like a sister series to Contra. It's a lot more fun and goofy and lighthearted.
Lots of vehicles.
Yeah, and then there's tons of shmups, just tons, like more than you would ever possibly need. They're all available here. And the emulation options are great. You can put on filtering. You can basically dump in as many virtual quarters as you want. You can play in tape mode on a bunch, so those are really cool.
And like I mean, the emulation is really good. They had that one issue was the Donkey Kong emulation, the sound effect replacement.
Yeah, that
was
sucks.
the one thing. I actually didn't check back whether they
didn't
patched it.
No, they haven't patched that
they,
yet.
They really should. But overall, the emulation is really good.
Yep. A similar series is the Sega Ages series. These are $7.99 each. There's only a few out now, but they are Outrun, Phantasy Star, and Puyo Puyo is about to launch.
There's Phantasy Star.
Removed of its cool friend Tetris. Which sucks because I think Tetris is better. But I'm playing Outrun right now, and damn, that game is fun.
Yeah, Outrun is great.
It's so gorgeous. And
It's
it's also,
relentless, you know.
Yeah.
It just never stops.
yeah, it's really beautiful. It's about a guy that brings a beautiful woman on a date and then I think tries to kill her.
By flipping his Ferrari.
His car flips constantly. I'm learning to play this game better now, but the cool thing is in this port, which is a port of the 3DS version, which sadly loses its 3D functionality, you can play in widescreen, pixel-perfect arcade quality.
Looks amazing.
And you can also bump up the time limit and easiness of it. So this game is pretty tough in terms of like,
Yeah.
in terms of getting you to checkpoints as fast as possible. But with this now, you can actually bump the time limit up and get to the end of the game pretty easy. And it's got different versions, like the US version and the Japan version, which actually have different branching paths. I've been playing this game smart for the first time ever, which is actually shifting gears between low on turns and high on straightaways. You know, like driving. And it's a great time. So yeah, these games are $8 each. They will continue to trickle them out. Sonic's also out there in case you wanted to buy that. Next, the Mega Man and Mega Man Legacy collections. These go from $14.99 to $19.99 each, depending on if you want like the NES versions or not. These are really cool. I'm more of a fan of the NES collections, especially Mega Man 1 through 6, and also the sort of spiritual successors of those, which are 9 and 10. You guys like these games, right?
I love the Mega Man collections. I have. Are there 4 of them? There
are 4,
Yeah.
and so some of them are $14.99 and some are $19.99. And I'm not crazy about the second X collection, I believe.
Yeah.
It
I mean,
gets hit or miss towards that.
The later X games are not great.
Yeah.
But yeah.
You a Mega Man guy, Max? I'm not at all.
I love the idea, but I don't enjoy playing. Like I just suck. I'm just terrible at them.
I get mad.
I grew up playing a bunch of Mega Man X, X and X 2.
Yep.
Yeah.
I like those robot animals.
Yeah. So these are all on Switch. It's really cool that these collections are just available and that Capcom's putting them out. Speaking of which, there's also the Street Fighter 30th Anniversary Collection, which China, Japan.
This one rules. I really like this one.
This one is in terms of, this is $39.99. Notable games include Street Fighter 2, Street Fighter 2 Turbo, Street Fighter 2 Turbo Remix, 2 Deluxe, new Super Street Fighter 2 Pros. This was when Capcom couldn't count to 3.
They just
kept putting out Street Fighter.
And this
2s.
collection is just crammed with Street Fighter games. Like it's insane. It's such a cool like. I know it gets used a lot, but it really is a love letter to the Street Fighter series because nearly all the Street Fighter games up to 4 are on this, right? Is that like, yeah.
By the way, I lived in Japan when the Street Fighter games were Street Fighter 2 games were at their kind of max popularity, and it was kind of like DLC or like a game like Fortnite, like a game as service today, where people would line up whenever a new edition of Street Fighter 2 would land in arcades. Like there were lines just to play.
The coolest thing about this, I was over at a friend's house who had this, and he's big into Street Fighter, also bad at it, but we decided to have like a challenge where we played a match in each version with the same characters, and like seeing the just little tweaks they make to each iteration is so cool because like I don't know, Street Fighter 1, nobody plays Street Fighter 1.
It's so weird.
It's not great, you know. And then Street Fighter 2 comes along, and it's weird because of all of the sort of subsequent versions that have been in there. We're like that has a huge roster, and it's like no, you're thinking of like Ultra Championships Turbo Edition or whatever.
Yeah, and so on the sort of collection side of this thing, this is probably the best collection on Switch because when you dig into the magazine scans and box arts, and there's high-res photos of the merchandise that sort of accompanied the launches for these games, and it's so cool, like to see that. Like
this first one looks so terrible.
It really. No one has any nostalgia for Street Fighter 1.
No.
I mean, it's got really funny voice acting. All over the world. But to go into like the lore side and to see like sort of like everything that kind of the packaging and the arcade cabinet marquee art and everything that went into this game really makes you appreciate it as a franchise and from a historic perspective. So yeah, that's $40. It's on Switch right now. So I guess I want to ask you guys real quick. That's a lot of games, but obviously there's still millions of other old retro games. What's a collection you'd like to see on Switch? And I'll kick it off. The Disney Afternoon Collection, which Zach thought was there because it should be, and it's stupid that it's not.
Yeah,
because it launched.
Wild.
What's in it?
Oh, this has basically DuckTales, Darkwing Duck, Chippendales Rescue Rangers, and Tailspin, I believe, are the big four.
Oh,
Tailspin. This launched on consoles while the Switch was already a thing.
Yeah.
And immediately people were like, Capcom, get it together.
Honestly, it was like, it seems like to me sort of like a catalyst for Switch when, you know what I mean? Like, when is this coming to Switch? Like, this was the first game that I heard a lot of people asking that question about. Like, when is it coming to Switch?
So real quick, Per, what's a retro collection you'd like to see on Switch?
So I would love to see the LucasArts Adventure Pack coming across. That's actually out there on Steam and has been for a couple of years. That includes Fate of Atlantis, Indiana Jones game, Last Crusade, also Indiana Jones, Loom, L-O-O-M, not Doom, but all caps Loom. And then my favorite in the collection, The Dig, which was this classic sci-fi adventure with the voice of, what was the guy who played Doggett in the X-Files, you know? Yeah.
Oh, right.
These are... God, I forget the actor's name, but it had like... Robert Patrick.
T-1000.
He was T-1000, right?
These are
Terminator.
point-and-click games, right?
These are classic Lucasfilm games, adventure games, that kind of a genre that fell out of favor and kind of got brought back more.
Do you think
more
they could
recently.
work with the touchscreen?
Yeah, of course. There's a way to make any of this happen.
I mean, Grim Fandango works
We already
on
have
Switch.
Grim Fandango, so that's another Lucasfilm game, LucasArts classic. So
Fate of Atlantis is one of my favorite games
so good.
of all time.
I got to a part in that game where you had to wait for some kind of performance to end, and I kept trying to walk into the performance, and the bouncer at the door just goes, "Hey, you can't go in there."
Yeah, that's Bruno. Bruno. You can either fight him or talk your way out of it.
And they have a sound alike for Harrison Ford that LucasArts used to.
I don't think that'll work. It's an old wooden ship rib.
Yeah.
Max, what's a retro collection you'd love to see on Switch?
So this is kind of a half answer. I don't know if this fully counts as retro, but the Metal Gear Solid HD collection or Legacy collection.
That game's 20 years old. That's retro.
That's old, man.
No, I mean it's weird that the best game with Solid Snake in it I played this year was Smash. I mean, really, the best Metal Gear game. Well, it's very sad, but that's I don't really want to give Konami money for Metal Gear stuff right now, but I would also really love to take Metal Gear Solid on the go. And we've gotten a handful of Metal Gear games on Nintendo, and
it's weird. The original one, then there's the Ghost Babel for
so good
for Game Boy Color,
Twin Snakes,
which was a remake of the PS1 game.
Yeah, it's weird charm
made by Silicon Knights. It's got a Yoshi hidden in it, and then Metal Gear Solid 3 came to 3DS.
3DS, yeah.
Right.
And that's pretty much it, which is really weird. That's just a weird like somebody's wiggling through that franchise history and dodging a lot of the great stuff. But
yeah, I mean, it's never been like, I guess it's sort of Sony exclusive to a certain degree, but it has those odd.
Well, I mean, we've seen that's only the first one was all Sony exclusive. Like all the other games came to
it was on PC
Xbox
too,
and
though.
And then
PC.
before that, MSX and all that. I mean, the franchise isn't really a Sony, like a synonymous with PlayStation anymore. So really.
And they
We've seen
put
it
out
on
the
Xbox.
They put out the Legacy Collection, which included, weirdly enough, HD Collection did not include Metal Gear Solid 1 or 4. So Legacy Collection was like everything up until 5, pretty much.
So annoying that the first one isn't in that collection.
I don't know if the Switch could handle MGS4 because that was like made from the ground.
I think
up for
the Switch
PS3.
could handle it.
I think porting would be a nightmare.
It'd be a lot of work. Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
I would take
Plus,
the
it would
ground.
be
great.
it would be the biggest cartridge of all time.
Oh my god!
I think you'll see companies go after Unreal Engine games and not the stuff with proprietary,
proprietary
engines.
engines,
It's
yeah.
so much work.
Zach, how about you?
Give me that Sega Dreamcast collection. Ooh. Yeah.
All right.
Choo Choo
Yeah.
Rocket.
Yeah, I want Choo Choo Rocket. I want let's see what else would be on there.
Want that
Sonic
Shenmue?
Adventure.
Seaman?
No, I don't care
Want
about
that Crazy
Shenmue.
Taxi?
Yo, if they put Seaman on Nintendo Switch,
All you need is a microphone.
yeah,
Like
that's true.
The Switch has a
You shut your mouth.
microphone port.
It's I will giggle
Wait.
about the name of that game until I'm dead.
True story. When I very first started working at IGN, I thought I'd be like a cool retro boy and bring my Dreamcast and set it up and like have Seaman just like on my desk so that people could come by and talk to it.
Seaman on your
I just put it's just an HR violation, but literally the first day that I had it set up, Alex Solomita, who used to work here, walked past my desk and he's like, "You playing Seaman at your desk?" And I
Yep.
was like, "Yeah." And he goes, that's weird, bro, and just walked away. I just quietly turned off my Dreamcast, like, well, that didn't work out as planned.
Hey, good news. He quit, so you can put Seaman on your desk.
You can put
again.
Seaman back.
So yeah, that's a quick rundown of some of the retro collections on Switch. I really love them. I love that this is a great place to celebrate those games, so check those out. I wanted to do a quick segment on Zelda, because I love Zelda. We all love Zelda.
I've heard of it.
Da-na-na-na.
Get the thing. It's been a couple years since we have gotten any news on a new Zelda. We got Breath of the Wild around the Switch's launch, which is just around the corner for being 2 years old. And outside of Master Mode and motorcycles, not really much. I want to talk about a new Zelda, very briefly, but with a specific angle. Obviously, there have been tons of Zeldas in histories, and a cool thing about them is a lot of them center around a specific hook. So, yes, it's a Nintendo game, so there it is. Hook shot. I love it. If we were to hypothetically build the sequel to Breath of the Wild or the next Zelda game on Switch, utilizing one beloved hook from a previous Zelda game, which would it be?
Oh, it has to be rooted in, so it can't be Breath of the City.
No, it can.
It has to be rooted.
We'll start with that shell, right? So we start with Breath of the Wild, or the sequel to Breath of the Wild, not the exact same game. It's a new thing.
Okay.
And then we'll add some new features on top of it. So, Per, let's start with you. What's something you would take from an old Zelda game that you would add to Breath of the Wild?
Okay, obviously, I would love some of the more intricate temples, kind of the dungeons back that require to use your tools, whether it's a boomerang or a hook shot to puzzle solve. I really like that stuff. I want that back. No, but the big kind of element I would love to bring back is that kind of dual time setup. I thought Link to the Past still did it the best. Ocarina of Time also did it well. But Link to the Past did it so perfectly well where you get to a point in the game where you can transition between two time zones and literally a rock that exists in the past no longer exists in the future. And it's just so cool to try out this world and constantly warp back and forth and figure out what has changed. I think that'd be so good. That's such a great, unique approach to puzzle solving or getting into something. Chrono Trigger did it really well too. I'd love to see that return.
And Breath of the Wild hinted at stuff like that, of sort of showing us a world that was kind of in ruins and not really telling us how that happened.
Yeah, I want to go back.
Yeah, so mine sort of piggybacks on that. I want to take the sort of seasonal shifts from Oracle of Seasons, which was the Capcom Game Boy Color game.
That takes us back.
Yeah, and so in that game, on the fly, you could dynamically shift between 4 seasons, and it would dramatically change the environment around you. So if you walked into like a sunny, wonderful, summery area in Breath of the Wild, you could click a button, all of a sudden it would be winter or fall. And changing
so you can
that,
walk over the lake when
and so like if you walked up to a temple and it was, sort of covered in shrubs, you would click a button and all the plants would die and it would become fall and you could burn them and get them out of the way and walk inside. So back to back, you and I would
make a snowman.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, why not? That means that, Per, in Breath of the Wild 2, hypothetically, you can time travel.
Yep.
And you can change seasons.
Yeah, that's already a lot of stuff.
We're going to break this game.
They just have to build 5 maps now. Wait, no, they have to do past and future in all 4 seasons.
Exactly.
Right.
So 8
super
maps,
easy. Super easy. Zach, what about you?
I think the real answer is Link's Awakening's weird fever dream Twin Peaks characterization. I know that's not like a gameplay mechanic, but that's like the Zelda franchise is known for its like weird characters and weird settings. But like none of them are as wild and weird as Link's Awakening. In terms of like an actual feature, I'd like to see is and it's kind of a variation on the theme of your two, but we have derided Skyward Sword a lot on this show. But the one thing that I really loved about that game was the Desert Palace, the Desert Temple, where you had the orb that basically put you in a pocket
bubble
of the past or the future.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you would walk it towards something and that would shift that whole area back in time. And like that mechanic was so cool and so underutilized. I'd love to see that come back and be a bigger feature in a game. Yeah.
Max, how about you?
So I'm a big proponent of the Minish Cap.
Hell yeah.
It's one of my
great game.
I literally took that game to my senior prom. And then I sat and I played the Cloud Dungeon part.
Did you get pictures with her?
There's a picture. I'll see if I can dig it up.
Please do.
That was.
We'll post that in the forums.
But no, I love the shrinking mechanic in that.
Yes,
it's one of the coolest things because I mean that's the whole thing is you get the funny talking hat and then you get this like this staff that staff. No, I forget how you shrink. You just shrink?
Yeah.
You go into those, the tree.
Oh,
tree
Oh, that's right.
Right?
You pop in there. But then you see this entire secret world. I'm thinking of the thing you flip pots over. And there's a whole secret world of the Minish people,
Yeah.
these little mini people, and it's so funny because we've seen Breath of the Wild is so heavily inspired, or at least kind of reminiscent of Miyazaki movies, Studio Ghibli, like Princess Mononoke, Spirited Away, and Nausicaa, and all that. And I would love to see them kind of draw from the secret world of Arrietty, where it's like the Borrowers, it's little tiny people, and like imagine getting a whole set of gear that's just made from like clothespins and like
acorn hat.
Yeah, exactly. Like little tiny stuff. And then I don't know, that'd be really cool because it would be, again, we're kind of talking about how we would take something like the huge sandbox of Breath of the Wild and then iterate on top of that, and you can do stuff either with time or whatever. But scale is an entirely different animal there.
Yeah.
Could you imagine like a world the size of Breath of the Wild, and then you have that macro level where you
Right.
can shrink
Underneath
to?
it, yeah.
Walk across the map in 4 years.
Oh my God.
That'd be absolutely bonkers. But yeah, the other one I was thinking would be just take Breath of the Wild, Hyrule, and just put it underwater, and then make a Wind Waker on top of that.
Oh,
yeah.
Imagine just, I mean, we've seen so many games do that, like the Assassin's Creed, where you can dive
Far
anywhere.
Cry Primal.
And Breath of the Wild had
No underwater in Breath of the Wild.
no, it had
Yeah, hopefully your swimming
shoes.
would be a little bit better.
It had boats, but they were not good boats. Like they were like rickety rowboats that you had to use a stick to sail. So there
I
you
want
have
the
it.
iron boots back too. Good point.
So there you have it. Based on this conversation, Breath of the Wild 2 will have 2 competing time travel functionalities, 4 different seasons, covered in water and shrinking. So what would you add to Breath of the Wild 2 or the next Zelda game? Let us know in the comments or write into the show, and maybe we'll read it soon.
Yeah.
Now it's time for IGN's Game of the Year.
What?
Question block.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's not a game.
It's a game, and it's also IGN's Game of the Year. So we're going to do a whole special video about it, and everything's going to be great. You're all going to love it. Question block. We got some questions this week. This one comes from Kevin Valder. He wrote into us.
Lord Valder.
He did. And he said, longtime IGN reader who just started listening to your podcast a couple months ago. I always look forward to your weekly show as I find it consistently hilarious and informative. Technically, I should cut out all the parts where they say nice things, but everyone's
It's
mean
nice
on the
to
internet.
hear.
So
Yeah, there are too many mean people.
So tiny
Thank you.
This is my first time writing in, so I'll get straight to the point. What do you think Nintendo hasn't released a Wave Race game in almost 20 years? I thoroughly enjoyed both Wave Race 64 and Blue Storm, and I can't figure out why Nintendo hasn't released a new one. As far as I know, both games sold reasonably well and were received well critically. I would prefer a brand new game, but I'd be fine with Wave Race Redux, very hard to say, that combined all the courses from the prior two, updated the graphics, and added online support. Thoughts? Thanks for reading.
I think that the reason that we haven't seen Wave Race in so long. Do you remember when you first saw Wave Race on both on Nintendo 64 and the GameCube, like how realistic that water looked?
Yes.
Remember how amazing it was and how like physically it looked and felt like we were watching water?
Yeah.
I think that in this generation, like on the Switch with the graphical capabilities there, that the water would be so realistic that you would be looking into the mouth of madness. It would just make you insane. You would not be able to tell black from white, up from down. It would just blow your mind.
I thought you were going into the point that like the 64 and the GameCube were at the time cutting edge consoles.
Nah, I goofed. I did a goof instead. Yeah.
So
That's true.
that might be one of the reasons, or the other reason is that Blue Storm sold under 400,000 units worldwide. And I think when Nintendo looks at their core franchises, they say, we need million sellers, you know, and Blue Storm is a really good game, and in addition to obviously being set on the water, all the Wave Race games have these interesting features where the water levels change.
Yep.
And you can take other shortcuts when the water level is low than high, and these took a long time to make, and then they didn't sell as well as New Super Mario Brothers U re-release.
Well, what I liked about those games is that every time you played them, they were different because you would try to be really good at a race, but the waves would vary and you'd cut corners differently and stuff like that.
I love those
Also, there were dolphins you could ride, which, agreeing with Zach, would be so real. They would make us sick and scared, so you can't make them. But I think that this franchise is locked in some room somewhere with 1080 and F-Zero and
We
all
gotta
the old
get it
racing
back.
friends.
We got to get it back.
I agree.
mean, they could recycle some of the levels from Blue Storm. F-Zero GX, by the way, same boat, right? Like just a couple 100,000 sold. And
Oh, F-Zero was those cars.
F-Zero
They're very different types of boats.
Daniel Guillen asked, this is a weird one, but I'm reading it. Do all Yoshis lay eggs, or do some just go around fertilizing them?
Yow!
This is for Max.
Delete this.
Max,
No.
local egg expert?
Hey,
expert.
Why? No,
Hey,
I don't want to answer that.
you think those Yoshis are doing it?
I like to think that the Yoshi is much like the frog, and it does all sorts of weird downstairs things. I don't understand.
Life finds a way.
There's your answer. Adrian Crawley asks, has anyone ever remade Mario but like in reverse? You start
It's
out
just a whole game where about sitting down.
you start out in world 8 and then you run to the left. So actually, I love this
want
pitch.
that.
So imagine a Mario game that begins with a Mario game ending, and Mario goes, "I have the princess. We did it.
I love that.
I got to go back home." And
gotta get her home
and he has
safe.
go all the way back, and all of the bosses that you killed are just waking up, and they're like, "What the hell was that?" And they're really angry, and they're going to beat you up. And then the princess is there to help you.
It's like revenge.
Yeah.
That's really
you
good.
make sure everyone's okay, because they're not really enemies. That's all like a big stage play. They're not. There's no one's trying to kill anybody, and he just goes and he apologizes to everybody, and then goes back and takes a nap.
So he has like a apologize button.
I don't
That's
know.
right,
I think you would give them band-aids and stuff. Feed them whatever.
That's basically
whatever
Paper
Goombas
Mario
eat.
you're
Yeah.
describing there.
This is like very like Lord of the Rings fourth wall breaking, but like at the end of most Mario games, he gets in a hot air balloon and goes home.
Yeah.
Why doesn't he just fly the hot air balloon to Bowser's castle to begin with and just get the princess and get out?
It's because the magic currents that push against it. Also, the wind would be so realistic that you would look into the mouth
It would
of
make you go
madness.
criminally insane.
Ladies and gentlemen,
I want to play that game.
I do
though.
too. It
that
sounds really good.
Amazing.
That's our show for this week. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you, Pear. Thank you, Zach. Thank you, Max. This is Nintendo Voice Chat. I'm Brian Altano. Where can people find you guys?
On the internets, on Twitter, I'm PearIGN.
You guys, anything cool you're working on?
I'm at ZachariasD on Twitter and working on a lot of cool stuff that we can't talk about just yet.
Sweet. He's working on a Mario game.
Seaman?
playing
Something
reverse.
Seaman?
Secret stuff.
You working on Seaman?
Pair. Must you?
Max?
Yeah, if you want to hear more of me, I'm on Beyond every week, the PlayStation show, and Brian's
right.
there sometimes too.
I am. I try to be.
Yeah, and you can find me just Max Scoville on Twitter.
That's right. Thank you so much for watching from us to you, and thank you for being Nintendo fans. This is Nintendo Voice Chat, and remember,
Get the thing.
thing.